Hey, welcome out to KSLSports.com front page, KSL Sports front page at KSLSports.com. I'm KSL TV's Sam Farnsworth, joined by KSL Sports digital producer Kyle Ireland from his safe haven at home. He hasn't been here in the office for a while. A lot of people haven't been, obviously, with what's going on, but it's great that we can get together through this format and talk with our viewers and readers about a lot of the headlines that's going on. First of all, Kyle, what's up, man? You been good?
I've been good. I mean, I haven't seen you, Sam. I miss you. I haven't seen you in months. I don't know what's going on anymore. It is definitely crazy. I mean, I feel like, what is it? First part of August, we're going to be going on 5 months since I haven't been in the office. So it's kind of crazy. But it's also like we're having basketball come back here in the next little bit with the Jazz. And I'm like, it doesn't seem, when you think about it, it doesn't seem like it's been that long since they've played. But at the same time, it's been quite a while. I mean, a third of a year has gone by and we just haven't had a lot of sports. So it's nice to see things ramp back up.
So you talk about Jazz come back. I'm seeing them practice. I'll just peek at one of my tweets real quick. I know this isn't at KSLSports.com. Way, Kyle.
This is an inside look at the front page. We're getting the insider's view here.
A little bit. Kyle, your Twitter at Kyle
at Kyle Ireland.
At Kyle Ireland. So there you go. Follow Kyle. He's got all sorts of great stuff. If you're on Twitter, you got to follow him as well. On my Twitter, I just retweeted this earlier from the NBA right here. I don't know if you saw this one. Oh, I didn't know there was audio. They're all muted. We don't need to hear it. But I see this. I see. Obviously they have a robo cam that's shooting a lot of this stuff, and they have their own camera operators because of what's going on with the quarantine and the whole bubble situation. But I see Mike Conley Jr., the smile on his face, the fun he's having, all these little trick moves he's doing, getting Royce O'Neal involved as well. But I see this, and I'm like, they're having fun. They're having fun playing basketball again. They've missed it just as bad as we have. And here we are watching them having fun at the end of practice. I'm hoping to see this translate over to the ball court when we start playing games here in 2 weeks. And hopefully it means we get some fun, good Jazz basketball back, even though it's the shortened, end of the season with the 8 games and then the playoff. They're still playing for a title here, a chance to win it. And so I don't know. This is encouraging to me, Kyle, and I don't know about you, but it also gets me excited to see Jazz basketball get back.
Yeah, I mean, just first off, I'm excited just to have any basketball, any sports that are, back and something that we can talk about, something that Jazz fans, people in the state are passionate about. But when you look at the Jazz in particular, as far as this restart's concerned, I mean, it's been talked about a lot. I mean, I was out mowing the lawn this morning and listening to Zach Lowe's podcast, and he was pretty pessimistic about the Jazz opportunity in Orlando with Bojan Bogdanovic out with injury in it. I feel like, that's an obvious thing, but then you've got the Donovan and Rudy in their relationship and the pandemic kind of disrupting, Mike Conley, who was really coming on after the All-Star break, kind of getting into a rhythm. You've seen all these different storylines that, could potentially disturb the Jazz in this restart. And there's only 8 games before the playoffs, so not a ton of time for them to kind of get ramped up and ready to go. But seeing that, that video clip, Mike Conley smiling, looking like he's having fun. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of these guys feel pretty great physically just because they've had so much time to recuperate their bodies after, playing 2/3 of the season, being able to have this break. I feel like physically, once these guys get back into game shape after getting a few games underneath their belts, I feel like the playoffs are going to be, just peak performances. We're going to have, imagine LeBron James. I mean, he's 35, but imagine LeBron James after months off and, not having to carry, the weight of the team through, the end of the regular season. You've seen these guys where they kind of, okay, we're just trying to make it to the playoffs. Well, now we're going to be here, but they've also had time to rest and get ready to go. I'm excited to see the peak physical condition that these guys are going to be in, ready to play. But when you talk about Mike Conley, I mean, you brought him up in that video clip. What I'm really interested with him is, the Jazz in past playoff performances over these past few seasons, you've looked at, back when they played the Clippers in the first round and Hayward was still on the team. A very different Jazz unit, but they had a guy like Joe Johnson that they signed to bring him in. And you saw what he did in the first game, getting that bucket to help them get that playoff win and really kind of propel them into a series victory all the way through that 7-game series. But you look at what Mike Conley could do. I mean, he is the veteran guy on this team, and I'm interested to see how he kind of, hey, forget about your differences, Donovan and Rudy. Forget about the pandemic. Forget about all of these distractions that could potentially pop up. Bojan's not here. All of these things that could disturb or prevent us from having success. I'm interested to see how his leadership kind of rallies this team because, clearly on the court, Donovan and Rudy are the two, big names. Donovan's really the face of this franchise at this point, and, the leading scorer and all of those things. But Mike Conley is one of those guys that everybody on this team can look to with his decade-plus experience. I mean, he's been to the Western Conference Finals, right? Like, let's not forget that. He's had playoff success, and so I'm interested to see how the group kind of rallies around him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think even though he had the experience he had as a top player for his team and just his resume in the NBA as an all-star with a previous team, I think when he came here, and I think that showed on the floor when he came to Utah, there's a little bit of hesitation and nerves, even maybe a little afraid to step on people's toes. This is Donovan's team. This is Rudy's team. He knows he's coming in as a tertiary figure on the team, so to speak, and even took another step back when Bojan emerged so quickly. Joe's been around for a long time. So I think maybe he was a little, hesitant, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it showed on the court. Seeing that video like we're seeing today, with the time that's passed, he looks a lot more comfortable. Looks like he's and with Bojan out too, you don't want to see someone get hurt, but you see this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
He's probably seeing this and like, all right, it's time for me to be me again. And this is the perfect time to get the Mike Conley that the Jazz were hoping to get when they made that acquisition. So you did talk about a little bit about distractions, Kyle. I don't know how big of a distraction this is, but obviously yesterday and today a big headline has been Justin Wright Foreman. He retweeted a tweet that was a supportive tweet of Nick Cannon, who got caught up last week in his podcast with some anti-Semitic statements that he made. There's been a lot of tweets supporting Nick Cannon out there, and Justin Wright Foreman retweeted one of those tweets yesterday, and it immediately picked up some attention, some headlines. The rabbi here in Utah noticed, and I had a conversation with him yesterday on the phone in which he said that it was a hurtful statement. Even though he didn't actually type it himself, the retweet was a hurtful statement, and that he never thought he would deal with or see anti-Semitism here locally in Utah. And today, Justin Wright Foreman had that chance to talk, Kyle, and he was able to talk to the media, albeit briefly. He was able to answer a couple questions about that and share his side of that story as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that, even Justin Wright Foreman, I mean, he's a two-way player. He's, towards the end of the Jazz roster. He's primarily spent a lot of his time with the Stars, and you look at the fact that, he is a public figure, and any little thing, can be scrutinized. And, obviously, I mean, I condone any of those, anti-Semitic statements. There's no place for that in the world, let alone,
right.
In Utah, where we're talking about, people are so passionate about the Jazz. And so it was nice to see him come out and address that today and apologize for those things. I mean, all but a retweet, right? I mean, he didn't type anything out like you said, but, even the smallest thing can cause, pain and damage and offend people. And, I think that's something that I've really just, kind of learned a little bit myself, just here in these last few weeks, just about, the power of words. And, social media is, you can think it's, a small thing. You're just scrolling on a timeline. It's not a big deal to you,
right.
But that could have, big ramifications, small action. And so I think that, it's nice to be able to have these things talked about openly and addressed. Not saying that it's good that, some of these things happen to get to that point, But now that, we're kind of in the world and environment that we are in right now, being able to kind of take these things and progress and, help the world become a better place, help Utah as a state, become a better state, and have, some of
Yes.
these role models and these figures that, little kids playing junior jazz look up to these jazz players, they're idols, right? I mean, when I was a kid playing junior jazz in West Jordan, Utah, I looked at Brian Russell, Karl Malone, John Stockton, all of those guys, and they were my heroes, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a reminder that, there's a lot of people watching, and it does help us to move forward and make this world a better place at the same time.
Yeah, no doubt. And as you mentioned, he did apologize. He did say that he wasn't completely knowledgeable on the whole situation and what Nick Cannon said. And he did say that right here. That I'm trying to highlight this so that people can see the quote I'm talking about. But he did say that he wasn't knowledgeable on what Nick Cannon said and what he meant by it. He said he just got caught up scrolling in his account and retweeted it. He's called it an accident and apologized for it. So as far as, if we go back to, the big picture here is that we're having the conversation, right? That it is important that even little things like that happen are noticed, are recognized, are brought to the attention of him, the team, the public, so that it can be addressed, that we can have these conversations. This is what we've been learning more and more about. As far as a distraction to the team goes, does this become a distraction? I don't think so. And the main reason why I would say such is because of the way it was handled so quickly. Steve Stark reached out to the rabbi last night on behalf of the Jazz, apologizing on behalf of the Jazz to him, making kind of that immediate contact locally in Utah. But also Justin Wright Foreman as a guard, I think he's got a bright NBA future ahead of him. He's got a skill set that will serve him well in the NBA, but he's only played 2 minutes in a Jazz uniform this year, so and who knows how much, if at all, he'll play in Orlando. So when it comes to the basketball aspect of it, I don't think this is going to have that big of an overall impact on what the Jazz are trying to do. But again, it's something the Jazz don't want to ignore, and they shouldn't ignore either. It should be addressed as they did this morning. And if there are further questions down the road, they should address it as well when that time comes. All right, Kyle, one article I know you are a little excited about and would like to talk about. How about Matt Bushman, BYU's tight end, named to the Mackey Award watch list? Mitch Harper putting this article out today on KSLSports.com.
Yeah, first off, I'm excited on the optimistic side of things for college football. I mean, deep down, there's part of me that just is still so pessimistic about the prospects of having a college football season. But let's assume that there is a college football season, and we get to see a guy like Matt Bushman, who's one of the best football players in the state of Utah this upcoming year. The fact that he explored his options outside of college football, turning professional and whatnot, and then decided to come back and play his senior year at BYU. I think that he's primed and ready to have a really awesome senior campaign. You look at some of the great BYU tight ends. I mean, everybody knows their names, right? We could go through them all. But Matt Bushman has the opportunity to really cement himself among that group of elite tight ends that have played at BYU. I mean, most recently, you've got Dennis Pitta, right? Like a guy who played in the NFL. Like, I'm not saying that Matt Bushman is Dennis Pitta. Dennis Pitta was, awesome. He was great, not only at BYU, but also in the NFL. And, I'm not saying that he's going to have the same kind of career trajectory as Dennis Pitta, but, he's got potential to play in the league and be able to, suit up on Sundays. And I'm excited to just see, what he can do for a BYU team that really has, since 2017, has kind of, they've been average, I'll say, right? They really struggled in 2017, and then they've just kind of been average. They've had some good moments, but then they've had some bad moments as well. And so with that senior leadership, being able to, be like, hey, I'm coming back for one more. And, he's not going to get to play Utah, which is something that I'm sure he's disappointed about.
Right.
But the fact that, he's coming back to be able to suit up one more time for, a team that he's played for the last few seasons, I think that that's cool. But I'm also excited just to see, because he's an awesome player. And I think that, this group of tight ends that he's with, he was part of this watch list last season as well, if I'm not mistaken. And so, he's been Yeah, he's been up at the top of the tight ends in college football for the last couple of seasons, and we've got a couple of great ones in the state with Brant Keithy up at Utah and Matt Bushman.
Yeah.
I mean, I love seeing tight ends just because they're such an interesting position, because you've got your blocking tight ends, your catching tight ends, and Matt Bushman's really kind of tried to get better at blocking and whatnot. And I feel like he's definitely improved. It's been cool to kind of see him throughout his BYU career get better, and I'm just excited to kind of see what he does to be able to get to the. I love NFL football, and so I'm excited to see how he can kind of get to that point as well.
I think it definitely has a future beyond BYU, especially if this senior season goes well for him. Watch lists for me, they are what they are. It just provides talking points at this point.
Yeah.
Season, right? But I think there's a lot that goes to it as well. When you're saying Matt Bushman's been on the Mackey Award watch list 3 years in a row, I mean, come on, that means he's one of the top tight ends in the country. There's no doubt about it. And oftentimes the role of a tight end, kind of the production, the success of it, has to ride along with the success of that offense as well. The tight end isn't going to carry that team, so to speak. The quarterback makes a lot of those decisions, the offensive coordinator, whatever, however they use him. But obviously he's one of the top weapons on that BYU offense. And the fact that Mitch Harper's bringing him up among the list of greatest all-time BYU tight ends, that he could finish right up there at the end of his career, says a lot about how good Matt Bushman is as a tight end. So check out that article at KSLSports.com as well. Join the debate and conversation on where he ranks. I remember as a kid seeing Chris Smith with Ty Detmer, early Ty Detmer, then Chad Lewis early in his career, kind of bookended Ty Detmer's career there as well. And then Atula Mealy, Doug Jolly was great later on. So yeah, BYU's had a good track record of tight ends, and you can go even further back than the ones I've said, and I'm sure I'm missing several others. But yeah, jump in on the conversation, check out that article as well, and hopefully college football, it's going to be a unique situation for BYU this year. So hopefully the fact that the schedule is changing up doesn't take away too much from what Bushman and BYU is trying to accomplish as well. All right, another big article that we've been this is a national deal here, obviously going on. So this is a big issue, obviously, with what's going on in Washington. The whole name change thing kind of put them on. I don't want to say put them on the map. It put them in the headlines, though, for what's going on right now, getting the Washington football name changed from the Redskins to something different. And it sounds like things are headed in that direction. But then the Washington Post, there was those rumors going on all week that there's a big bombshell coming out. And the article that hit yesterday from the Washington Post had a lot to do that, Dan Snyder, the culture that he has groomed in Washington has not been a healthy one, has not been a very safe one, and certainly has not been very equitable. Is that the word I'm looking for? Equality, in the way that they've treated some of their female workers. And it's just come, I think it was 15 right there, 15 female former employees said they were sexually harassed during their time with the team. And there's nothing good about that statement right there, right? But what I like about this is that this is bringing it back into the conversation again of what's happening in sports with women that work in sports, women that work in sports media. I've worked several of them that I think do a phenomenal job, and I haven't maybe always been aware of some of the challenges that they face. And so this right here for me, I'm enjoying, because it is making me become more aware and ask more questions to some of my current and former coworkers of, hey, what are some of the challenges that you face? What are some of the difficulties that you face as a woman in sports? Because it hasn't always been equal, and it's been difficult. And it's the situation with the Redskins certainly is throwing that into the limelight. And owner Dan Snyder, although no one accused him of any wrongdoing, he's the one at the top, right? He's the one that's kind of groomed this whole atmosphere of what's going on over there. And so, the headline that we have obviously is that he says he vows a culture change. But it'll be interesting to see how he approaches that, because he seems like a guy that's pretty set in his ways. He's been very set in his ways about changing the name of the team until he's basically is forced to. So we'll see. We'll see how things change there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because how much does somebody actually want to change until their feet are to the fire, right? I mean, like,
Right.
where's the change coming from? Is it coming from the heart because you want the actual change, or because you're forced into it? I think that this is a good opportunity for a lot of sports organizations, whether they're teams, or it's journalism and covering sports, all of these different things that have to do. I mean, it doesn't even have to be sports, to be honest with you. It could be just corporate America, right? And just the world in general, and just
Right.
trying to strive for equality. But it gives people, specifically just taking this story, in these types of organizations that are working with sports, where it really has been an uphill battle for women to work in sports and to cover sports, and to be able to say, look introspectively at their organization and say, how can we look at what we're doing? Are we totally doing the right thing? Are there problems in our organization? I think that this gives, including just the local teams that we cover, whether it be the Jazz, RSL, the Royals, BYU, Utah, I mean, you name it, all of these teams and organizations should be doing the same things to themselves right now that the Redskins are doing, not because they have to, because of allegations, just because it's the right thing to do, just to kind of do a self check and say, hey, are we being totally equal in our hiring practices? Are we giving prospective female employees, the fair shake at, try and get this job just as much as we would anybody else, a man, woman, doesn't matter. And I think that that's something that really, in the last few weeks, all of these kind of social justice issues, these efforts that have been talked about, all of this conversation, like we've kind of repeated, having this conversation is really good, because, I'm just thinking about the women in the workplace where we work, Sam, and
Right.
some of these friends that we have. Imagine if they were mistreated in the same way that these former Washington employees were treated, and how sickening that would be for us. And so I think that this is just a good time for everybody to kind of do a self check and say, hey, how can we improve our culture, whether we have problems and need to root those out and get rid of them, or we don't have any problems. We just kind of need to make sure that we're continuing on this path of equality, like you mentioned earlier, regardless of men and women. I mean, this is something that is so widespread in sports, and it's a sad thing. It's the reality of the world that we've lived in the past. And I mean, we've seen issues with like the women's national soccer team, and inequality of pay, and all these different issues. And I just think that this is an opportunity to make things right and move.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't change the past. We can't go back and change those things, but we can change things in the future, and we can move forward. Not just sports organizations, but just the world in general. And so I think that this is a cool opportunity for people to do that self check, that introspective look, and say, hey, this is something that we've seen as a problem here. Let's not make it a problem with us.
Yeah, no doubt. Andy Munoz chimes in on our Facebook with a comment saying Washington needs to do the right thing and change. I think all of us agree with that. It takes more than change. I think it takes action as well moving forward. To prove that you changed, it takes action moving forward to show that change, as far as, I don't know, making statements, being a presence in the community for that change. So we'll see what they do. I want to pull up one thing before we switch topics one more time. So someone that I worked alongside, never worked with or anything, she wrote for the Denver Post for several years, then with USA Today. I think she's with The Athletic now. Lindsey Jones, she was a Denver-based Broncos writer. She put this on her Twitter today, and I think this says it pretty well. She listed a bunch of points when it comes to this, as far as men being allies with women working in sports. But this one right here, when you see it or hear it, speak up and don't laugh along. And I think that one caught my attention, because it's oftentimes when you're hanging out with your buddies or your friends, whatever, someone makes a joke or cracks a joke, sometimes you just kind of don't think a lot about it. You kind of laugh along with it, or whether you agree with what they're saying or not. Sometimes I think it's just easy just to kind of ride the wave of what's happening around you, if that makes sense, right? It's the whole the whole locker room atmosphere type of thing, right? But it's important, I think. She brings it up. We don't have to sit back and just laugh along with it. Speak up. Don't laugh along. I like that. I thought I'd point it out. Everyone can take that for what they want, but
no, I'll just add to that, Sam. I think that everybody should be. I mean, if you don't subscribe to the Washington Post, I think it's a couple bucks a month, and you could just cancel after that or whatever. But I would encourage everybody to actually go read the actual Washington Post article. They have screenshots of text messages. Some of it, I mean, is pretty disturbing. But just to be able to read, firsthand accounts of what some of these women experience, just to be able to have a better understanding is something that I would encourage everybody to do, because they had really just a detailed look at the situation there, and it was a really great piece.
All right, so we will head back to the front page here at KSLSports.com. There was another article, Kyle, and I already forgot it. Which one did you want? Oh, yeah, right here.
Tony Finau.
He's tearing it up.
He's awesome right now.
This is great. And Tom Hackett posted this one here at KSLSports.com, and he finished early today. So Finau's already been in the clubhouse for a while, but he's still tied for the lead, 9 under for the tournament. He had a shot today. Can't remember which hole. I want to say it was hole 9, and he had a similar one yesterday, but it was probably a good 25 feet off the hole, but he had that thing zipping right back to the cup. It ended up stopping like 5 inches away. He's just been really on game yesterday, today. The big question is, can he carry it through the weekend? I believe if I have my my mental database correct here, that he only has 1 career PGA Tour win. And so this would be a great one. The Memorial is a big tournament. It's a big deal. This is Jack Nicklaus's baby. Go out and win this one. That'd be so awesome if you can carry this win through the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've seen he's had some moments. I mean, we talk about like the big tournaments at golf, right? The Masters and all these other majors, where Tony's actually, performed pretty well and then just hasn't been able to finish it off. It's interesting to see, he took last week off, right? He broke the course record up in Park City. I can't remember what course it was, but he just destroyed his previous course record up there, shot below 60 for the second time ever. And to be able to take that week off, I wonder what that did for him to just kind of take a step back, regroup, and then come out and have a good performance these last 2 days. It'll be interesting to see what he does, tomorrow, and then if he can carry it into Sunday. But if he goes into Sunday with the lead, I'll feel really good about Tony's chances on Sunday, because he deserves one. I mean, he's had some really great performances, and it'll be cool just as, fans of golf and then just fans of Tony as a Utahn to be able to go out in there and get one as far as a win is concerned. And I mean, he's had a great season so far. If he could get a win or 2 under his belt, that would be pretty awesome to see him kind of finish off the year that way.
Yep. So Tony Finau, the front runner at the Memorial. Let's hope he can keep doing it. But you can follow along his progress. We'll have post ups on him all weekend long at KSLSports.com as well. We'll continue to follow what the Utah Jazz are doing as they continue to prepare for the restart. They're the first game of the restart against the Zion Williamson-less Pelicans, unless he makes it back in time.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll have all that coverage, KSLSports.com, of the Jazz getting ready. RSL tonight, the Royals tonight. We've got live soccer still going on, live sports going on, Kyle. So a lot going on. Follow it all at KSLSports.com. Sports Beat tonight, KSL News at 6 and 10, and then over the weekend on Sports Beat as well on television. But am I missing anything, Kyle, before we bid our viewers and readers good evening? Yeah,
just follow us on social media, KSL Sports. I'm going to be at the Royals game tonight, actually, covering that game live in person. So you can follow along on our social media channels. I'll do some stuff on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So you can check that out at KSL Sports. Get some live look at the Royals tonight, 8 o'clock and 8:30 for the Real Salt Lake. I can't talk. Real Salt Lake game at 8:30. So yeah, that'll be fun.
The Royals are excited too. We heard from some of the players yesterday or the day before, I think, in some media availability, and they're talking about they're playing for a championship. And you can say what you want about all these COVID shortened seasons and COVID forced tournaments that they're hosting places and things like that. There's probably going to be an asterisk next to all of them because of it, but it doesn't matter. It's still a championship. And the Royals, they say they're super excited because they are now in the knockout rounds.
Yep.
8 teams, so that's 1, 2, with 3 wins away from a title, I think, if my math is good. So let's do it. All right, Kyle, good to have you. Thanks for hopping on with us, everyone else. And that's it for KSL Sports Front Page. It'll be back again on Monday afternoon at the same time, 4 p.m. In the meantime, have a good weekend, folks.